Hello everyone and welcome to another What I Think review, and today we're going to be looking at the official 13th Doctor figure, the character options version. As some of you will know, there is a 720 version being released, but to put it lightly, it does not look as good as the character options version, so I may pick up a 721 in future to do a comparison, but for now, let's just look at the character options version. So we'll start off by looking at the box. Now, the box itself is very nicely presented. Obviously, you've got nice clear view of the figure on the front, and you can see around the side, and then on the back is very simply a card with telling you what other products they also offer. Obviously, the 13th Doctor 10-inch figure and the sonic screwdriver. Now, this is obviously a bit of a departure from the previous packages we've had. In that we've had, well, I say it's a departure from previous packages we've had. It's a departure from the most recent figure, which was actually in a box rather than a bubble pack. But personally, I actually quite like this bubble pack look, because it does remind me more of what we saw in sort of from Series 1 onwards. Series 1 to, I would say, Series 6, I think it would have been, because Series 7 didn't really have any sort of bubble pack figures. That's when they started to be put into boxes. So sort of Series 1 to 6 is where we saw these bubble packs. I think the only problem, the only thing that this is missing, and it's a very small point, and it's a bit of a silly point, I'm sure some will say, is that this isn't made to be hung on a shelf. There is no peg hole in the box. Now, obviously, again, you could just stack this on shelves. It's made to stack on shelves, and there's lots of places sell them on shelves, I'm sure. But there was just something, personally, I thought was really nice when you went into, let's say, Forbidden Planet, and even in the days when even going back just one step where the figures were in their boxes, they still had a tab that let them hang on a peg. And it was just nice to see rows and rows of pegs full of them, rather than sort of shelves where it sort of disappeared off into the back of the shelf and you didn't quite see how many was there. When you saw them on a peg, you knew exactly how many were there, and it sort of gave you a good idea of how well they were selling as well. So I think it's a bit of a shame that they haven't put a peg hole in there. I mean, they could just literally move the BBC logo off to one side, and then they put the a peg hole there. So it's a very small thing. I know, and it's something that is very insignificant, and it certainly doesn't detract from the product at all. But I think, in terms of how character options display their figures in future, I think having it on the peg would look very, very good. But now we're going to get on to looking at the figure. And so here we have the 13th Doctor figure. Now, at first glance, it does have a few little imperfections, but I have to say, I think this is actually one of the better figures that we've seen released in recent years. It's a shame it's got a few down points, which I will go over in a minute, but overall it's a very nice looking figure, very well presented, and it certainly looks nice. We're going to start off by looking at the sonic screwdriver, which I'll bring a bit closer to the camera. I'll also put this back so I can get a bit of better focus on it. So as you can see, it's got some very nice detailing. It does look like the sonic screwdriver. It's got the nice little yellow areas of detailing as well. The one thing that I think they could have done with this to make it just a little bit better would have been to actually mould it out of a clear yellow plastic, or a clear sort of orangey yellow plastic, and then paint the silver on top. Now, I may have a go at this in future myself, I don't know, but I certainly think that that's something they could have done. It just would have, as much as this, as good as this looks, they could have just added a little bit extra to it by doing that. But it does look very good, and if I go back to the figure, I can show you that it does fit nicely into the hand as well. It's a little bit of a tight fit, but it does fit. It looks very good. The overall figure itself is very nice. The head is a very nice likeness. Personally, I think it's a good likeness. I'm going to try and camera won't track in as usual. I think that's correct tracking. Yeah, it's a very good likeness to a head. I know some people have said like it doesn't look very much like Jodie Whittaker, but I have to say I think that is the paint application, because obviously now I've got this figure, I'm in the process of finishing off my regeneration figures, and so I have cast up another head from this very figure, in fact, and you can see the likeness of the head without any paint, and personally I think it really does look like Jodie when you see the raw sculpt. So I think that probably what this is a case of is, unfortunately, like many of Character Options figures, it's a very good looking figure, it's a very good likeness of the actor, but it's let down by its slightly rushed paint application. And on the face, I have to say, overall on the face, the paint application on this is very good. The eyes are all in line, there's no sort of extra marks on the face. I know some people have found their figures with extra marks and things on it. However, the body does unfortunately have some areas which have not only paint application errors, but also mold errors. For example, here on the back of the collar we have this big lump here, which is part of the mold as well. And then if you look at the edge here, where the edge of the hood is, and all around the edges here, where the edge of the hood is on the inside, that's been very rushly painted. That's a real shame, because if that had just been done, just that little bit extra care, that would have looked a lot better as well. On the front, we see that we've got a little bit of paint, some yellow orangey paint here, and there's also a little bit here. And then on the coat side here, I'm quite lucky here, but I have noticed some other people have posted it. They have entire blue streaks all the way down on the inside of the coat, and it's a little bit of a shame that these stripes, the multicolored stripes, don't go all the way down the inside of the coat as well. So obviously there is room for improvement on this figure. And the other thing as well I noticed is that we've got the usual articulated leg joints, we've got the knee joints. No, unfortunately, no swivel at the thigh, and the legs as well and shoes are completely fixed into place. That is, this basically, for those wondering as well, interesting bit of trivia for you, the arms and the waist and the upper parts of the thighs are actually from a Series 3 Martha Jones figure. Everything else is brand new, but they have reused those parts there. So obviously what they've done is the lower part of the leg is an entirely new sculpt, so it's a bit of a shame that there's no articulation there. Obviously it's got waist articulation and the arms as well. Unfortunately the arms are just up and down, there's no ball joints on the arms, which is a bit of a shame. But we have got the bicep swivel, and it's all been very nicely painted overall. It's just a shame that there are a few areas where the paint application could have been a lot better, and just from the figures that I've got, this one, the other one, obviously I haven't taken out the box, but the other one does have its small sort of paint bits here and there that could do with improving. But these ones that I've got, I'm quite lucky in that I've seen some of the other ones that people have got where they've got great marks down the face, and there was one that had a massive blue paint line up at the back of the coat. It's a shame that the quality control really hasn't been taken very well on this. Obviously you've got the braces inside, and then the head, which I know a lot of people were querying about when the figure was promoed, is that we actually do have a head that is on a peg, and it's actually, the neck is part of the torso sculpt. Now I quite like this, actually, I have to say, because it does give the head a lot more flexibility in terms of maneuverability as well, so it's a nice interesting thing to see. But generally overall, as I said, it really is a figure that it's certainly one of the best figures in terms of just as a figure in general. It is certainly one of the best ones we've seen in recent years, I think. I would put this, personally, I would put this up alongside the Night of the Doctor 8th figure, for example. I consider, of most recent years, I would consider the Night of the Doctor 8th Doctor to have been certainly one of the best figures we've had of a Doctor in recent years. And I really would put this up along with the other ones. Now, I said I would put this up, and the reason I can't is just simply because of the paint application. It really is a shame that they just didn't take that little bit of extra time and care and quality control with these figures. I know they probably wanted to get them out as soon as possible, and you know, I know that they realised they were going to be popular, and obviously, as I said earlier, you know, when you look at a picture of the 720 version, this certainly is the superior figure, but it is just such a shame that whoever does the paint, the paintwork, whether it's done by machines or whether it's done by hand, I don't know, but whoever is in charge of the paintwork or in charge of the quality control of the paintwork, they really aren't paying as much attention as they should do at character options, which is a real shame. It really is a shame, because you can really see the work that's gone into this figure, in terms of making it, in terms of sculpting it, putting it all together, and making it look the part, really making it look like the 13th Doctor. It's an absolutely fantastic figure. It is just a shame that the quality control of the paint does unfortunately let the side down on that front. But by no means would I say that you shouldn't get this figure for that reason. It's certainly a figure you should get, but I get the feeling that what's probably going to happen is a lot of stores are going to find their 13th Doctor figures on the shelves in quite a lot of disorder, because people are going to be standing there going through them trying to find the one that has the least imperfections. And I get the feeling it will get to a point eventually where stores will just have the imperfected figures back in stock. You know, that's all they'll have. So I think it really is a shame on that front. So character options, if you are watching this, I said I don't know if you are. If you are, you've really done a great job with this figure. I really do have to say I'm pleased with it, and it's certainly a figure I think is going to be popular. But just that little bit of extra care and attention when it comes to quality control, that's all that needs to be done in this case. There's a lot of other figures in recent years, you know, there are things like, you know, for example, I know for a fact that they're releasing the B&M sets that we had recently, the main sets. They're re-releasing the 70s set, for example, to correct a lot of the mistakes that they made the first time. And it's a shame really, because I have to question, and many people have to question, well, why were those mistakes made? They were made because the figures were rushed and people didn't pay enough attention to quality control. And I really would have hoped that they would have learnt from that. But you know, from the condition of, not so much from the condition of this figure a little bit, but certainly from the condition of other people's figures I've been seeing, it really does seem like the quality control is still not becoming a watchword for character options, which I think is a real shame, because this really is generally a very good figure. And so that brings to a close my review of the 13th Doctor figure. It's certainly nice to finally have it. And I have to say, you know, in closing, I really do think that a few small little niggles aside, this is actually one of the better figures we've had in recent years. It's a shame that small areas like its paint application in places do let it down, but as a figure, as a sculpt, and a likeness, I really do think that CO have put a lot of work into this. It certainly is a figure that portrays Jodie as the 13th Doctor, and I think it is absolutely brilliant. Well worth one that's worth picking up. I might get a couple more in future to do some customs things, but we'll come back to that at a future date. But that is my review of the 13th Doctor character options figure. As always, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Like, favorite, subscribe, share, it really helps me out a lot. Be sure to check out the description below for a link to my Patreon. I'm doing my very first figure animation and you can get involved. There is exclusive content and rewards for those who do so, and finding my Patreon in any way gets your name at the end of my videos. I salute you all, and I will see you with another video very soon.